Pledge of Allegiance, led by Ms. Maxwell.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Maxwell. If you would, on the moment of silence, let's just remember all of our employees with the Rutherford County School System, all of our students, bus drivers. Let's keep all of them in mind as we start this new school year. It's going to be a challenge, and it's probably already been a challenge for a lot of people, so let's just keep those in our thoughts. Thank you. All right. Any questions on the agenda? Hearing none, consent agenda, is there any questions? All right, moving on to number 6, visitors. We have, will be visitor number 7, our director's performance.
2021-22 Director of Schools Performance Evaluation instrument found on tab 2. Dr. Grissom, would you like to come up?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board and the Superintendent Spurlock. Thank you for asking us to assist you in the development of your Director of Schools evaluation instrument. I called each of you and spoke to you about the instrument and the things that you would like to see in that, things that maybe you would like to take out. And I'm happy to report we incorporated all of your suggestions. I worked very closely with your superintendent. We made sure that we took the items from the board's strategic plan that related to the 21-22 year and incorporated that into the instrument. So I know your secretary has made copies for you, but also brought a copy that's in the blue folder. Let's jump into the actual evaluation, and then the board will have to decide, vote on the instrument if they want to adopt as is or if they want to make some changes. But Appendix A, some boards choose to have administrators to evaluate the superintendent, and this is a one-page evaluation instrument for administrators. And when we say administrators, we mean those that work closely with the director of superintendent, which would be your central office staff and principals. I know some of you indicated that you would like to have all staff evaluate the superintendent. That is totally up to the board, but we suggest that it be administrators that work closely with him. But that's Appendix A is something the board can do if you choose to, or you don't have to. Boards across the state, some do, some don't. So another comment was made about the administrator survey. Want to make sure it's confidential. They can mail it to us directly. I can assure you if it gets sent to us, we don't need to know the name. Once we tabulate them, we're gonna shred them. So the confidentiality piece will be no problem if TSBA is administering that. So your employees don't need to worry about if I say something, they'll know who said it. So just want to make that clear. So that's Appendix A. Appendix B is your board observational data. In state law, as you know, you're required to evaluate the superintendent, and they list several categories. In our sample evaluation under, say for instance, board relationships, we had probably 14. We gave you 14 so you could pick and choose. We didn't mean for you to have to use all 14. If you wanted to, you could. So a few of you sent me suggestions on things you'd like to take out. I can assure you I took out all the things that you asked me to take out, and I added one or two things that you wanted added. So when you look at board relationships, community relationships, staff personnel relations, facility finance, vision, student achievement, management and operations, integrity, fairness, ethics, political, social, cultural context, all of those have got your changes in them, and as you can see, someone mentioned that you want to keep the instrument short and concise, so we did delete a lot of those, and honestly, we gave you the kitchen sink so you could pick and choose the items that you wanted. So I feel confident that Appendix B has incorporated everything that this board had suggested to me. Now, if you didn't get something to me, we can talk about it tonight, but for those that did, it is in there. Appendix C, I worked very closely with your superintendent on Appendix C, and I'm confident that we got everything in the strategic plan that was outlined to be completed for this school year in there. As you know, we're waiting on the state with our AMOs, and you'll see under annual objectives that we've got to wait for your superintendent to get those targets, and once he receives those, he will put that in the annual objectives. And then the other items came straight from the board strategic plan, and that's how it should operate. Your superintendent's evaluation needs to be tied directly to your board strategic plan, and this instrument that I'm presenting to you tonight does such that. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll take any questions or comments anybody has about the instrument. Well, I must have done a good job. Thanks. No, I'm just kidding.
I definitely appreciate everything you've done here for us. Board members, do you have any questions or any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question, and we spoke a little bit about this not too long ago. On the performance evaluation guidelines, it's the weighted section, the averages will be, we need to determine those averages.
Yes.
Tonight.
Well, since this is his instrument for the school year, you need to have the instrument before the school year starts. So I would suggest the board decide tonight what weights you want to give each of those sections. First, you need to decide if you're going to do the administrator survey. If not, we'll have to take out Appendix A and just do B and C. So I guess that's the first question. Do you want to do the administrator section? If yes, okay, then we need to do the averages, weighted averages.
And on those weighted averages, do you have recommendations for us on how, can you give us an example of how other systems have weighted them?
I think the most important appendix is C. I think that's where you should put most of your percentages is on C. And boards do different things. Some have done 25, 25, 50. A lot of boards don't do the administrator piece. They just do B and C. So, if it's just those two, I've seen, 25, 75. So it just depends on if you're going to keep all three. But I think the most important piece is Appendix C.
Any other board members? All right. I guess you did do a good job.
Great.
We should be getting our AMOs probably toward the end of this week.
Okay. So do you want to keep Appendix A in there? And if so, you need to decide which, staff you want to evaluate the superintendent. I think it's important you establish that before it's time to evaluate him to be fair.
Does this need to be a motion?
Yeah. Or do we do this?
Since this is the work session, does that mean, do we have to wait till Thursday?
That's up to you all. It's on the agenda. Do you normally vote on things at your work session?
No.
Okay.
You won't take any votes
Yeah.
tonight. If someone wants to make a motion to whatever effect in regards to it, you do that Thursday night in the meeting.
Okay.
Motion on Thursday?
If you want to discuss it though and decide what people advocate from one side or another or what you want to do, certainly you can do that tonight if you want to do that. The vote would have to be Thursday.
Mr. Chairman, I can see the value in keeping all three components. I think the survey, the administrative survey, is very important. It's an important part. I think that central office staff and principals be appropriate. So I like what this is. I think it's brief. I think it covers some major points. I like that we included the strategic plan and those accountability components. I would like to know what administrators and, we don't know what we can correct if we don't have a full picture. So I think this helps us get there. So, and I think that the recommendations of the 25, 25, 50, if we keep that A, Ms. A in, I think that would be appropriate. That would be my favorite of that.
Any other comments?
Support that.
Anything else needs to be added or taken away? Very good. So we're going to keep all three sections, A, B, and C. And the weighted averages will be 25, 25, 50, with the most importance being on Appendix C.
I think that's good. If you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, when we look at the guidelines, number 7, I put May, but these can be dates that you all decide. When do you want me to send out Appendix A to those identified administrators? And then when do you want me to send out B and C to the board? I put May, but you all may, Mr. Superintendent, you may have some difference.
I think May.
Is that good?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Is that in line with the contract, Mr. Reed? Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll work with the superintendent prior to sending out the evaluation instrument to the board. I'll ask the superintendent, which I'm sure you'll be glad to do, like an annual report, because sometimes I hear from boards, well, I don't know if he did that or not, or we got that done. So we'll make sure that an annual report identifying things that have been accomplished, or if some things didn't and the reasons why, that will accompany your evaluation instrument, so you'll have that as you're scoring him. But I also encourage you, if you've got a question and you don't know, pick up the phone and call the superintendent. If you're in the middle of evaluating him and you don't know something, there's nothing wrong with you picking up the phone and having a conversation with him. Because you want to, guys, this may be the evaluation of your superintendent, but it really is evaluation of how well your school district is doing. And it should be a time of celebration. It's the window of opportunity your community has to see how well your district is doing. So, this really is to highlight the accomplishments of what you've accomplished in your board strategic plan. And then that will guide you on updating your strategic plan for next year.
Thank you very much for putting
Thank
this
you.
together.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Have a good evening. All right, moving on to number 8.
All right, number 8, we will not be presenting tonight. We'll do it on Thursday night. These scores are embargoed currently. I can tell you we have them. And, there's 3 things when we think about these scores that we know that have impacted where they are and where they need to be. One of the things is, if you'll be reminded that prior to the assessment, that it was well known that these test scores would not be held harmless for the students unless they helped them. So you got to think, one of the things you have to look at in terms of how much effort was put in with some. Another thing is obviously the in and out of school due to closing, due to COVID issues, staffing, things of that nature. And last but not least, some of those schools that had more distance learning than other schools. I think I'm a firm believer that not everyone learns well in a online environment. Some do, some flourish under that. However, many don't. So those are 3 different things. Looking at it, and I will just give you I'm not doing anything that I shouldn't be doing because I'm not divulging anything. When you look at our learning loss compared to the state, obviously you never want to be as low as the state, and we are not. However, I will say that we do have some significant challenges. And quite frankly, if you look at our demographics, our disaggregated data, our at-risk population suffered most of all. That's the reason why it's very important in the next few years that we have those programs that are helping accelerate that learning loss that had occurred. You know, I don't think anyone would say that even as a school district, this is anywhere near where we can be. In fact, I would agree with Dr. Sullivan when we would have liked the 2020 school year to have completed. We felt like we were on a trajectory of improvement, significant improvement. Now we've got some heavy lifting to do. But we do have the staff and our teachers and administrators to do this. But Thursday, I'll present it to you.
Any other discussion? All right, move on to number 9.
All right, the Atlas Program Memorandum of Agreement found on tab 3, stars. Students taking the right stand will provide a master's level specialist to work with elementary Atlas students and their parents in an effort to reduce chronic absenteeism and improve attendance of students experiencing homelessness. Indoor athletics will provide after-school and summer programming, including transportation at no cost to the students living in the motels and shelters. The Boys and Girls Club will provide summer programming in Smyrna and Murfreesboro at no cost to students who qualify for Atlas program. Because we pay for the summer programming, they also do not charge Atlas students for after-school care during the school year.
Any questions?
Another one.
Okay.
I think that's it.
I have a quick question. Mr. Spurlock, and I think this is great. I'm so glad that they're doing this. Do you have any idea, because I know we're only 2 days into the school year, when we'll have maybe some head count numbers as to how many students we actually have in the Atlas program this school year?
We probably can get that by Thursday.
Okay, well, if we can,
We
great. I
know-
know
we
it's
do-
just the
well,
first
I
week.
think we can. We do know that and we'll talk about that later on. There's going to be some significant growth in our county. So we'll talk about that. It's real fluid. I'll mention that at the end. But I think we can get that information pretty readily.
Also, real quick, what is indoor athletics? I mean, I'm glad they're doing this, but
Yeah.
I've never heard of them.
I think we've been partnering with them. Have we partnered with them for any length of time? Do you know? You're not aware?
They're a local nonprofit.
Okay.
They are?
Yeah, they take children during the weekends,
Mm-hmm.
and they get them out into the fields, and they play, and they feed them, and
Good, I
they
mean-
also, if there's children who are suffering in motels or in unstable environments, they go and retrieve the children. It's a wonderful program if you get an opportunity.
This is fabulous. I'm glad they were doing this. I knew the Boys and Girls Club, but I didn't know indoor athletics. That's wonderful.
It's a smaller nonprofit, but it's growing rapidly, and they do a spectacular job with our students.
Dr. Sullivan, are we attempting to develop that 10-core partnership with any of these?
We will. So the part of the ESSER and the learning loss that we'll be talking about in the next couple of months is a Tennessee all-core, and that's something the commissioner is asking all districts to be involved with, which is a really a low ratio and a high dose of tutoring services for our students. And we will have to partner with other entities to meet. They are wanting a 1-to-3 ratio, so one person for 3 kids. And so to meet a 1-to-3 tutoring ratio, we're going to have to work with a lot of these. And it'll be good for our community to work with a lot of these partnerships as well. So
It's good. And like you said, 1 to 3 would be impossible for us to meet that need.
I would ask, is this going to be available to those CDC children? Will they be allowed to stay after as well? Because I've had several people ask me, and I assumed they would, but, okay, good.
No other discussion, we'll move on to number 10.
All right, number 10, let me get over here. Our number 10 is Genesis Learning Center's amended contract to delete bus transportation found on tab 4. The renewal of the contract with Genesis Learning Centers for the 2021-2022 school year was approved by the board on July of 2021 under the terms of the prior contract. The school system has requested Genesis no longer provide bus transportation as part of its services. Genesis has agreed to make the change requested. The Rutherford County School System will provide bus transportation to assist with students. Attached in the tab is a proposed amended and restated contract with Genesis for the 2021-2022 school year, deleting bus transportation. The term of the contract remains the same, and the board has the right to renew the contract for 2 additional terms of 1 year each. Quite frankly, what we were doing is we were subcontracting out our contractor, and it was kind of challenging due to the fact that there were some issues along the way that we were getting caught with. So we decided to bring it back under our umbrella so that we had more autonomy when working with the bus drivers.
Just simplify things.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, Genesis called me today, and they had one proposed change to the proposed amended contract, and they want us, instead of referencing grades 1 through 12, ages 6 through 22, because they do provide services for some older kids. I guess they're not kids when they're that age, but they provide services through the age of 22. So where the heading says grades 1 through 12, when we have the matter for vote on Thursday, we would have changed that to ages 6 through 22.
Any questions?
You get that, Ms. Hopkins?
Number 11.
All right, number 11, IXL Learning, found on tab 5. IXL Learning, Laverne Middle School students in the IXL program to use as guided practice to help support and reinforce standards and skills taught in the classroom. The IXL program will also assist teachers in collecting data and help them plan for students in need of remediation and enrichment. Data will provide for student-centered PLC conversation and teacher reflection. The IXL program will be available for all students and used in all core classrooms to help move students toward proficiency on assessments. The details there, annual subscription for the 2021-2022 school year for this IXL site license will be unlimited instructor counts to the subject areas in the following, to the following subject areas: math, English language arts, science, and social studies. The total cost is $26,250 from this quote, and I think it's going to be a great program. Have we used this prior to this year?
We have. A lot of our Title I schools use this.
Has Laverne Middle used this?
They have.
I'll call your attention to the fact that Laverne Middle, prior, what was it, in 2017-18, was an on-target school, and then in the 18-19, the last time we had the assessments prior to this year, they were on the reward school. So I don't know that this helped, but it didn't hurt.
All right, any questions? Okay, moving on to number 12.
All right, number 12 is approval of the Carl D. Perkins Reserve Grant. Carl D. Perkins Reserve Grant is for the competitive grant process, and we were awarded $30,000 for our secondary education work for CTE equipment and $20,000 for student industry certifications for funding of the period of from July 1st of 2021 through June 30th of 2022 for a total amount of $50,000. So that's great. We've done real well there.
Do we know where this is going to be used? What school?
Yeah, throughout our.
All of them.
Any other questions? Number 13.
All right, this is a grant for voluntary pre-K program. The voluntary pre-K program grant is used to partially fund 15 voluntary pre-K programs that are housed in 4 of our elementary schools, and 12 classrooms are located in the John Coleman Annex in Smyrna, our highest area of need. All classrooms are at capacity, which means they have 20 students per class, with more than 90% of the students and families served qualifying based on household incomes at or below poverty level. The program is designed to reach Rutherford County's at-risk early learners. The monies afforded to us by this grant ensure that all students have supplies and high-quality materials available to them at all times in our VPK classrooms.
Any discussion?
Mr. Young, if I may, just real quick, we have asked the state for extra positions every single year. They are not approving any new because we know that our demand is much greater than this. Mrs. Hubbard does an amazing job and had a conference call with them today, and we have asked for an additional 3 because they have extra funding to see if we can get that this year. I doubt it will come to fruition, but we ask continually for extra spots.
How are they allocating those? I mean, is it based on enrollment numbers? Is it based on size of districts?
District size, what they have for allocation funding from the governor's office, and then based on your free and reduced lunch percentage.
My question would be, can we compare apples to apples? I mean, you know, if we went to looking at districts as far as enrollment numbers, it would not equate. We'd have to look at risk. What currently is our number, percentage-wise, at risk?
Last year was about 37%. That was probably a little bit higher because of the free lunch for everyone. So there was less transition than we would have. I would expect that to probably rebound a little bit, but the last couple of years, we've been between 40 and 37.
How did that work, Doug? And, you know, with us having this, you know, the seamless summer food, free meals, did we still see an increase in those that are signing up to qualify for free and reduced lunch?
I know Fit School Nutrition was still doing a big push to try to get all those that are qualified on free and reduced, still do the applications, and I'll find out by Thursday and let you know if we saw an increase or decrease.
And we're going through the same thing again this year, so we got to make sure that we do those same things.
Any other discussion? Number 14.
This is a request from Public Safety Committee found on tab 6. The Rutherford County Commission Public Safety Committee is requesting to build 3 11,000 square foot county public health and safety buildings on 3 pieces of our property located on the campuses of Rockville Elementary, Christiana Elementary, and Walter Hill Elementary. These buildings would contain 2 fire and 2 ambulance bays with equipment. Each station will contain communication equipment with a new truncated radio system. There would also be a tornado shelter to run capable of withstanding a F4 tornado. These facilities will be more than fire stations. They will be a health hub for the community. They're actually doing 5. 2 of these locations are not deeded to our property. There are 2 on here that would require work partnering with us. None of the land is impeding on anything that we plan on doing, but you might want to mention, Mr. Lee, the 2 proposed ones that we would have to do some things, or they would have to do some things.
Yeah, we've been working with Klein Sweeney, which is the county's architectural firm. They have reached out to us asking about utility connections, where things are, any drawings that we may have on these sites. At Rockville Elementary, they're able to tie directly to the new sewer system that was put in some years ago when we built the middle school. But at Walter Hill and at Christiana, we do have a single source pump station, similar to what we put in at Plainview. And the county would be looking to tie into that. They haven't got far enough along in their designs yet to see if there would need to be any kind of upgrade to that pump station, but if there was, I'm sure they'll be willing to work with us and get back with us on that. We'll have to, come back to you and talk to you about it, but right now, that's their intent. They just haven't gotten far enough along in their design yet.
One thing I would add on the Rockville Elementary, there will be opportunities for Rockville High School students that are in the EMT program to do some work-based learning there, which, is always good when we can do those kind of things.
I definitely, go ahead.
On this, if I may. Yeah, so who is funding these buildings? Is it the commission?
The commission.
Okay, so it's not coming.
No, it's not. All we're doing is allocating the space.
Okay, thank you.
A question, if I may. What are their plans for the future? They want to put a clinic there in the future?
I think it's going to be, they'll have police, they'll have EMTs, obviously, I'm assuming if it's a hub, it may even have something where they do medical things. I mean, obviously.
What little bit I've discussed with them, it's more fire, ambulance, and slash community center. You know, that's the purpose for the tornado shelter. You get out in some of these rural areas, you have, you know, folks that live in modular homes that don't have a place to go. That's one of the things that they're looking for as a way to help the rural parts of the county. The other ones they're looking at is in Kittrell, Amaville, those places like that, which are kind of further out. So that's where they're targeting, is trying to get these places out into the county, where they cut down their run times on fire, they cut down their ambulance times, they cut down, it's much better for public safety.
Yeah, a lot of our rural areas are just serviced by volunteers, and this actually gives us an opportunity to have trained professionals there all the time. So it's a win-win situation for our county.
Exactly. And I think there's even other things, you know, you could get into there. You know, our health department could do their immunizations there, things of that nature, still having them come back in town.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so the tornado shelter, is that a plan for each of them then?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
On the image, it says total area of disturbance for the first in our list is 59,307 square feet. Is that disturbance to the land, or is that the footprint of the structure?
That's the land itself. It's a little over an acre, acre and a half, and then they'll have some utility easements that would cross us as well. But the Rockville site, they have worked with us. The utilities are on the property line. The building kind of sits between the ball field and on the main Highway 99 right there. They've worked with us so that their entrance into their facility does not conflict with the middle school entrances. So there's a lot of that coordination that they have reached out to us, and we've been allowed to look at and work with them on as best we can.
So at Rockville Elementary, we are building an annex. Will this be in front of that annex? Is that?
It would be in front, more to the north. If you know where the ball field is, that's right there on 99. It would be between right field and the property line to the north. It's going to sit right on the highway. The annex that we're building would be to the west of the ball field, more in line with the wing of the building and associated with the gym. So they will not conflict at all.
No traffic or any issues there?
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Number 15.
Our number 15 is Title II IDA contract found on tab 7, Multi-Sensory Education Contract Agreement. The Institute for Multi-Sensory Education will provide a 5-day workshop, comprehensive Orton-Gillingham training to focus on K-2. The training will provide participants with an in-depth understanding of the IMCE's Orton-Gillingham's methodology over a course of 30 hours. Participants will be given tools to incorporate multisensory strategies into existing literacy curriculum and will enable them to better assess, evaluate, and teach children how to read, write, and spell proficiently. The contract details an approximate cost. First of all, the details, I think the first part of the training would be in September 21st to the 23rd and October the 26th to the 27th. Not to exceed $42,830, and it can go up to 34 participants. The breakdown of the cost and how it's funded: Title II funds for $30,330, IDA funds for $12,500. Is these specific to our interventionists? Is that what we're...
They are. This would be specific to our general ed and special education interventionists. And so it's a 30-hour training they go through the foundations of early literacy, whether it's phonics, phonological awareness, fluency, all the way through the 5. And it's something that has helped us as a district. We do this each and every year for every new interventionist we bring on board.
How many new interventionists are we bringing on board this year?
General, at least 12. Special education, we have 8 growth positions, and we have used 5 of them so far, 4 of them as interventionists. So 16 we have utilized so far this year.
All right, any questions? All right, hearing none. 16.
All right, these are our legal, found on tab 8, our policy. These policies are is a policy adoption on the second readings. The first one is policy 1A, policy 4.406, use of the internet. B, policy 4.700, testing programs. C, policy 5.200, separation practices for tenured teachers. D, policy 5.201, separation practice for non-tenured teachers. C, policy 6.300, code of conduct. F, policy 6.306, interference / disruption of school activities. G, policy 6.4081, safe relocation of students. H, policy 1.2021, boardsmanship code of conduct. I, policy 1.900, charter school authorizing principles. J, policy 1.902, charter school agreements. K, policy 1.903, charter school oversight. Policy 1.904, charter school intervention. M, policy 1.905, charter school renewal. N, policy 1.906, charter school revocation. O, policy 6.202, homeschools.
Any questions? All right, number 2.
All right, number 2 was brought about what we just learned recently on an online call. Pursuant to Board Policy 1.600, these policies are proposed as emergency policies to be adopted on first and final reading. Policy 4.212, Virtual Education Program. This is required by state rule. It establishes the expectations on asynchronous opportunities for students who test positive for COVID-19 or are quarantined due to exposure. B, policy 5.3051, emergency quarantine policy, grants all employees 5 days of leave to be used one time if the employee is contact traced because of being exposed to COVID-19 at work. Now, on that one, it has to be at work, that's correct. And in these policies here, you know, we might as well go over that right now. You know, one of the things that we've been looking at is we know that everything that we hear this year in terms of accountability, we're going to be accountable for our test scores. We're going to be accountable for recapturing some of the learning loss that we've had. And once we see it on Thursday, you will see that we've had some significant learning loss. In order to do this, we do understand that the state health department has the statutory authority to require students and staff who have been identified as being a close contact to someone testing positive to quarantine. However, the State Department of Health has not stated that they would require it. They have stated that they would strongly encourage it. All right, so we have to look at what they're telling us. At the same time, we have to look at the safety of our kids. So it is our proposal is we'll have to do the contact tracing. We would tell our parents that we strongly encourage you to let your child quarantine. However, keep in mind, we can't require it. If a kid is exhibiting symptoms that are consistent with COVID, we can require it. And our COVID would be a 7-day quarantine in which, if agreed upon in this policy about providing virtual options for them, we would provide that, and at the end of the 7th day, but prior to the 7th day, actually, if they're not exhibiting any signs, then we would bring them back to school. We need our kids in school, but we also need to make sure they're safe. So that is the proposal that we've looked at. We've actually, Ms. Page went over, we've had a conversation, I think, a couple of times about it. Ms. Page, you reached out to another system, I think, also.
Sure. I know Wilson County is considering a similar policy. Their board has to take it up. They did, when they did their mask reconsideration, they passed a contact tracing policy, which means in order to tweak it, they have to come back together. But what we're proposing to send out tomorrow would be a change to the procedure. What it would say is if a student is identified as a contact, we would ask the parents to consider quarantining, but as long as that student wasn't symptomatic or that staff member was not symptomatic, they could stay at school if they so desired. That way, students who are vaccinated and unvaccinated are treated the same. As long as they're not sick and they want to stay, they can stay. So that we're hoping that'll cause less disruption, less repeat students being sent home when they never are sick. And I know we've had a lot of a very quick pushback from parents when it relates to that vaccination status. And that was never the intent. We're trying to follow the rules given to us. But in light of the health department's at least current resistance to mandate it, we thought this would be a good opportunity for us to keep kids in the building a little longer and put some more choices back with our parents.
Any questions? I guess the biggest question I have, how are we going to communicate this to the parents so that they will truly understand this?
That's difficult. I talked with James, because, you know, the reality is we've changed this procedure a lot as we've received new impact. It's understandable that people are confused. We redrafted the procedure and tried to cut down in its scope. It was quite long at the end of last year. We've reduced the pages. I tried to change the questions to questions in there. So instead of saying, the following is the applicable procedures for students with 2 or more, we try to say, what do I do if I'm a contact? So we tried to make it more plain language. So that procedure, if you all, I wanted to get feedback from you all before I blast it out, but when I leave this meeting tonight, principals will get it, and then will be able to ask me any questions that they have. And then James, we'll work with him in the morning to make sure that the tab on our website's updated and that our principals understand. We've already communicated with some families that would have been able to make a different choice today. We've already communicated with some of those parents to let them know that if your child is still feeling okay tomorrow, they can come back to school. And so hopefully, it's going to take a little time, I think, for it to adjust, but hopefully it'll catch on pretty quickly, and we're open to feedback on how to make that better for parents to understand.
One of the things as we look at our early numbers of enrollment, of course, our enrollment, there's a lot of duplicates there. So we're looking at probably hitting, we currently have 49,431 numbers enrollment. Almost 500 of those are duplicates, okay? However, I'm going to take a wild guess on this one that we will end up at 48,600 or 700, 48,600. That is almost 1,000 more than we had last year when we ended school. And quite frankly, take away your virtual school with about 500 kids, you're going to have at least 48,000 kids on your campuses. We're going to social distance as best as possible. One of the things I want to really explain is we do have to take into consideration the health of our kids and their staff, and we also have to take into consideration what is going to occur once this pandemic is over with. We've got a lot of heavy lifting for some of these kids, and quite frankly, some of our most at-risk kids. And the destruction, and I'm going to use that term, that has occurred with their trajectory of achieving success has been thwarted. We've got some things that we have to do. We've got to be cognizant of safety. At the same time, we have to provide these kids in-person learning as much as we can. And that's difficult. There's nothing easy about this at all, whether it be for our teachers, our administrators, our staff, board members, central office people. We're already seeing some positive cases. I mean, we anticipated it. But one of the things I want us to understand too, and I think we do, but I think I want everyone to understand is that COVID does not just exist in schools. it exists out in every part of our society. So, we've got to forge ahead. I mean, we've got some challenges, but, we've got the people that can do it. And we've got to provide these kids a chance to recoup some of this learning loss and not add on to that baggage that they would carry for the rest of their lives.
I have a question. I had a parent reach out to me today and share with me that their child's teacher inquired of the class who was vaccinated and who wasn't. Are we condoning that?
No. All we'd have to do is know what school.
Yeah, we can fix that. In fact, we've done the opposite. We've really encouraged people to keep that information to themselves, told staff that it's up to them whether they answer that about themselves to parents. We've really tried to encourage that privacy.
Vaccinations are still experimental, and they're still experimental most certainly as far as putting them out to children. So I'd like to think that we're communicating that out to our administrators and principals to make sure that they communicate to the teachers that asking those students whether or not they've been vaccinated is not acceptable under any circumstances. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Does this apply on buses also? There's going to be the same ruling going there? Okay.
We're going to be consistent.
Okay.
Number 17.
All right, is the financial matters, 2021, 2022 capital projects budget amendment, Fund 177, installation of the turn pickup lane at Wilson Elementary. Due to increased enrollment, Wilson Elementary is currently in need of a dedicated turn lane, pickup lane to accommodate approximately 75% of the school students that ride in private vehicles to school each day. The installation of this turn lane on the edge of the school property will enhance safety for our students, as well as provide a safe turn-in lane for vehicles that are currently backing up onto the cutoff road. The cost for this needed school traffic improvement is estimated at $68,000. Anything you want to add to that, Mr. Lee? Other than it's been long overdue?
It's been needed for a while. We've had to work with CUD. When they built the original cutoff road, they had a blow-off line at the end of the water, on the corner of our property, which is something that municipalities typically do at the end of a water line. Well, it's not the end of the water line anymore. So we've had to work with them. They've been very easy to work with. We've got all that stuff out of the way, and we're ready to go forward.
Any questions? All right. Move on to the next.
All right, this is 2021 Capital Projects Budget Amendment number 2, Fund 177. Each July 1st, outstanding purchase orders in Fund 177 are liquidated. The funds are placed into the fund balance account 34685 and is committed for capital projects. These purchase orders are for projects that have been finished by June 30th. The amendment takes those funds out of 34685 committed for projects and rebudgets the expenditures for the carryover projects that were approved last year but haven't been completed. This year we have $2,564,032 in funds to rebudget for these carryover projects.
All right, any questions? All right, Fund 143.
All right, 143, the centralized cafeteria fund budget amendment. Currently, the school nutrition department is experiencing hiring issues. Imagine that. Similar to other food service employers in Rutherford County area. To attract and retain adequate staffing for the school cafeterias, the nutrition department director requests the approval of one-time hiring and retention initiative that would provide all RCS full and part-time school nutrition employees a one-time recruitment and retention bonus of $500. The payment of the bonus is contingent on all of the following stipulations being met by the school nutrition employee. Number one, the employee must be current, full, or part-time Rutherford County nutrition employee or be hired as such no later than September 1st of the current year. Two, The employee cannot have a break in employment with Rutherford County School Nutrition between September 1st, 2021 and December 18th of 2021. The employee remains on active employee status during the time period available and reporting for duty as assigned by the Rutherford County Schools Nutrition Department unless they have an excused absence. Rutherford County School Nutrition employees satisfying all three of these requirements will receive a $500 recruitment and retention bonus in late December of 2021, less applicable payroll deductions. Funding for this one-time hiring retention initiative with an estimated cost of $267,293 is to be fully funded with federal USDA School Program Emergency Cost Reimbursement Program grant award. Anything, Doug, you want to add to that in terms of where we're seeing that? Is it any particular grade band?
Right now, it's in several of the different schools of all the grade bands. I was speaking with Eric Smith. One thing that he was really wanting to recruit for was similar to what he did last year, was to create a mobile. Group of employees where they could then shift to, regardless of grade band, to where the staffing is most needed. That was successful last year, so we're going to try and duplicate that. It's also for the retention part of it, to keep the employees. We've got the experienced employees there, because once again, as we all know, in food service in Rutherford County right now, they're offering a lot of different things. I saw where McDonald's was offering, scholarships, to go to MTSU, for 6 credit hours a semester. And, it's, of course, we have quality of life as far as no weekends, no nights, holidays, where they would get that at McDonald's, but, we want to keep our good employees that are experienced, and that's part of this.
I never thought we'd get to this, but we're there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any questions?
What is the salary for that? Because those are salaried positions now, they're not hourly, right? They moved everybody to salary.
Hourly. What's the starting hourly rate?
I want to know. I'm going to pull it up for you.
Okay.
The cafeteria managers are salaried, and the other ones below that are hourly.
What's our hourly rate for a full-time, starting off 1 year experience?
While he's looking for that, this bonus is being offered to any, whether hourly or salaried, food service employees, correct?
Please repeat your question, ma'am. I'm sorry.
That the bonus is being proposed for any of our school nutrition employees, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
And the reason being is,
just clarifying.
yes, ma'am. Right now, we actually have our field managers and even our assistant director of school nutrition is covering for some openings, as well as doing training for new staff, some new cafeteria managers. And that amount for a food service staff assistant, they begin with 0 experience at $13.27 an hour. So the wage is competitive. It's just we have a shortage.
What I should know this. What's their days? Is it a 7-hour day? Or
It's
6 hour?
It varies. We have some that are
Full-time.
full-time that are 8. Then we have a lot of them that are 5.5 hours that come in and work.
Depending on what they're assigned to food prep or what they're serving.
So, Dr. Anthony, when do they become benefits eligible in those within those thresholds?
They are at, when they're at basically 6 hours and at the end of their first month. They become,
Okay, so roughly 30 hours a week that's required for them
That's
to be
right.
eligible to take benefits. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Number 18.
All right, this is a request from Buchanan Elementary School to replace the existing marquee sign. Principal Ashley Witt has requested permission to replace the existing marquee sign at Buchanan Elementary. with a new LED sign. Funding for this request is $20,039.11 from Wilson Bank and Trust and $4,956.53 from Buchanan Elementary PTO funds. The total cost for this sign is $24,995.64. This request is keeping with recent requests from other schools. Engineering and Construction has reviewed this request and they recommend the approval.
Any discussion? All right, moving on to Sam Davis.
Or this is the Sam Davis Home MOA. The United States Army Corps of Engineers have overruled the state and is authorizing the removal of the dam. The Corps has a plan of action to remove many of the low-head dams as possible to return streams to their natural flow, and that will help with the flooding for some time. They have issued a MOA for review by Rutherford County staff and Jeff Reed. We have reviewed the MOA after minor revisions and recommend it for approval and signature. Either, Mr. Reed, is there anything you want to mention about the dam?
We've had a lot of prior discussion of this. It has worked its way through the state processes now, and the Army Corps of Engineers has determined to remove the dam. They still have to obtain the consent of all the parties to the MOA. So in the process of doing that now, they've presented it on to us for the board's consideration at this point. So if the board's inclined to do it, we would go ahead and sign off on the agreement now. And still the board would have to get the approval of all the other different parties to the agreement, including a number of Indian tribes. It's interesting because of riparian rights of water and so forth. They actually have to communicate with Indian tribes to get their consent to this agreement as well.
So what does that look like then? How does it work? I mean, does every party that's a part of that have to agree, or is it the board's final decision? I mean, what does that look like?
The board is only one. The Board of Education is only one party to this agreement. So whether we agree to it or not would not impact other individuals. All the other parties to the agreement would have to agree to it. So this will be an agreement between all the people named in the MOA, and the board is only one of those. So if the other parties don't agree with it, then we would not have an agreement. The Army Corps of Engineers representative that I spoke with actually yesterday does believe he will have the consent of all the other parties to this agreement. So he thinks it's just a matter of getting it signed by the various tribes and everyone involved with the process. But he believes he has an agreement at this point to get the MOA signed.
Any other questions? All right, what's the name?
All right, request to name the front drive of Plainview Elementary. At the request of various county commissioners, Engineering and Construction is requesting to name the front drive of Plainview Elementary after former Commissioner Joe Frank Jernigan. Mr. Jernigan was a longtime county commissioner and a supporter of our public education system. Also, he was on the road board, what's their title, director or superintendent?
Yeah, he was road superintendent for a while.
Long time. How many years, Doug? You would know that.
He was the assistant road superintendent.
Was he assistant?
Mike Williams for several years, and then he retired. But he was that and the county commissioner. So a lot of time on those two boards.
Looking at this diagram here, is this the front of the school?
Yes, sir. That would be the front drive directly in front of the school where you would go into the main entrance.
What is that called, the road that goes around the school?
Well, I call it a loop or a circle, but it could technically be 2 or 3 different things. That's why we kind of led with this roadway here. It's the one that everyone would see. A lot of people don't drive around back.
Just throwing this out here, and it may not be something the board wants. Is there any thought process of making the entire loop?
You could.
I mean, I think that was requested specifically by one commissioner. They talked about the loop around the school.
Okay.
Which includes
if that's the way you want to do it, there's the potential for one of those to not be a loop to go on over to the middle school. So, I mean, it could get a little, but it's fine, whatever the board wants to do.
I mean, I did have a conversation with one commissioner that was requesting that the loop road, which included the front.
Okay, that's fine.
That's something, is that anything the board would want to entertain?
Well, I have a question. First of all, when the agenda was posted on Friday, I don't recall seeing this on the agenda.
It was not.
So when was it added, and has the public had an opportunity to look at it with appropriate agenda posting if it's going to be a voting item?
That would be a you question, Mr. Reed.
When was it? I don't have a clue.
Typically, matters like this are something you would give notice of and have on the agenda before the meeting.
So does having it out there for the public to review now satisfy the Thursday meeting, or do we need to wait till the next board meeting?
Well, you're talking about it tonight. If you want to be safe on it, I wait for the next board meeting and do it the next board meeting.
Let's move on to number 19.
Can we get back to that? Is there any, is there any thought process on the loop, or do we want to, if we're gonna vote on it, we need to probably clear that part of it. Do we want to keep it just the front of the, or do we want the road, around the?
Is there any purposes? Any board members got any recommendations?
I don't know that that in itself really matters necessarily, but I do think we need to follow our attorney's recommendation to err on the safe side and postpone this till the next board meeting decision. I mean, one question that I've got is, there are so many people out there that over the years have been involved with the school system and played significant roles in the system and everything else. That was there any, entertainment of any other submittal, of names that possibly, if we're going to name the road after an individual. So I would prefer to postpone it till the next meeting.
Anything else? All right, number 19.
We were, on this, is we were going to reach out to the members of the ad hoc committee that the school board created to study the insurance and the comparison between the county plans and the state plans. At the last recommendation of the school board, that was to, of course, engage a CPA firm or a professional consulting firm to really do a deep dive of those two comparisons for the school board. We'll be meeting with ad hoc committee here in the next couple of weeks to just finalize an RFP to put out for that consulting group to bring it in and have a report to the school board. Good, accurate information comparison. And that's all I have.
Number 20.
The report for testing on Thursday night.
TLN.
He says he doesn't want to share. Obviously, our biggest concern is the Delta variant and the impact it's having on schools. I would recommend that you just take it one week at a time. I sure he would take it.
To LRN. Regional discussion.
Several calls and several emails about what's going on about things like. I got your to explain what's going on and everything. And I know I do, but is there any way that if we can tweak our policies so that if we have a couple of months to see what's coming on, we can go ahead and we can address this? This will never happen again. Hopefully this won't have this overcrowding, but we can tweak our policies and not have to wait. Basically, I've had to tell everybody the zoning will be changed next year. The zoning will be changed next year. But we knew kind of going March and April kind of this gathering storm that was going. What can we do so that if anything, if this ever did happen again, and I hope it doesn't, we can say, okay, let's address this before school starts. Let's tackle this now so we don't have non-portables showing up again.
I don't think, I mean, when you're talking about the growth there, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but there were several homes that were up in a matter of days out there. I mean, we can't predict that.
What I'm asking is,
As far as the portables.
not having to wait, can we have like an emergency zoning meeting is what I'm saying? And let parents know, we're going to give you an opportunity.
Where are we gonna put them, Ms. Maxwell? I'm gonna give you some numbers, and Riverdale's over 2,000 right now. Okay, the only high school that is below 2,000 is Siegel High School. So one of the things that we did, we have in place for this fall, probably starting in either late September or October, is rezoning that 8th grade out of, down in, I think it's where you live in that area, right? Dr. Sullivan, will you be impacted by it? Are you gonna ask for a zoning exemption? Okay. All right. We're gonna, that will help some, but short of us,
That's what I was wanting.
Yeah.
I was addressing the 8th graders
Yeah.
now that are going on to Rockville.
well, they're going, we can't, we can't just, we're gonna start with next year's 8th graders. We're gonna start with the ones that are currently 8th graders at Christiana Elementary now. And we've got to be very careful with that. I mean, we're sitting at over 2,000. What's the number for Riverdale today?
So just to give you an idea of kind of where we are, and with enrollment wise, Mr. Schrog mentioned over 49,000. So it's a high number right now for a couple reasons. One, we have duplicates. Two, when students move out of our district and go to an area that does not start until after Labor Day, we're still holding those students because technically they still exist in our system. We haven't received notification. Third is our kindergartners did not start till today. And so we don't have a true accurate number of those. And then lastly, you have your city schools whose parents are dual zoned. So we are sitting over 49,000. We ended the school year last year with 46,886. So you're looking at 2,200, a full high school that we have jumped as of what's in there. Again, that'll come down some, but just to give you an idea of high schools, we have Blackman High Schools at 1998, Riverdale High School sitting at 1940. You have Oakland High School, and these are counts today of actual bodies that people have accounted for. Oakland's at 2002, Smyrna High School's at 2170. You have Rockville High School at 2,506. Laverne High School has gone from 1,800 to 2,048. And so if we were to take students today from Rockville to put them at a different school, we would cut it in half, and both of them are still overcrowded. They're overcrowded everywhere. I hate to say that, but we grew tremendously.
One of the things that I did look at with Rockville High School was their 9th grade over the last 3 years. That's where we've got to take a bite out of it. Over the last 3 years, they've averaged about over 600 kids. That's way too many. We propose probably over time, we're going to take at least 150 out of that number. I mean, we've got to be very strategic with it, because if we send them back to Riverdale, they're going to be overcrowded. Riverdale's going to be overcrowded. We do know that we're going to have to address it. Quite frankly, we're going to have to address it with another school, and find some land to begin with.
Yeah, I think that's the solution to a lot of this, is going back to our 5-year building plan and revisiting that and seeing how aggressive we can get with that building plan.
I agree, but I believe that I would like to see Riverdale and Oakland have the capacity that some of these other schools do, that they don't have now, because I'd like to see a building. I'd like to see a capital project where they extend out in the courtyard, and maybe you may not cut it all the way off and connect it, but I believe that they both need more classrooms so they can have capacity at 22 or 23 and just be in line with the other newer high schools. And I think both schools would benefit from that. And I think that is a solution that I'd like to look at in the next couple of years. They need a building. They need an extra, because we've done that with other schools. We've built extra wings, we've done things like that. And it's time, I think that is the solution to the overcrowding. Eventually, we are going to have another high school. But I think that if we brought Oakland and Riverdale up to capacity, a little bit more in line with the capacity of the other schools, that would help as well. That's just my 2 cents on that.
Go ahead.
I have a couple questions. What is Riverdale's current capacity? What number are you working off of? I don't know who can answer that.
Typically with them, I know Mr. Lee gets into all this with the square footage and stuff like that, but you got to build in, you got to think about your RTI, some of your AP, probably about, typically, when I was there, we had 2,600 students, but we had the trailer park.
That was crazy, yeah.
All right. When that was when Blackman opened up, and this is another thing, rezoning is not a perfect science. One of the things I will tell you is that the Casey Lane area has been rezoned back and forth for Riverdale at least 4 times. Okay. And it happens. It wasn't that someone didn't know what they were doing, but we can't predict the growth. About, say, for 2,200.
So 2,200 would be a safe number currently.
Mm-hmm.
And
It'd be full, but 2,200.
that's not adding any more portables than
No.
what's existent on.
Now, once again, you get into if a school has got more RTI classes and stuff like that, there's going to be some. One of the things that Riverdale hasn't done that we did well at Oakland is we took advantage of the space that we had. We took the inner hallways, and you'll remember this, Mr. Lee, where you got the hallway and you got that little section, what we call a quad. We took and closed that off and made that our RTI. We recaptured some space to address the smaller classroom space. But I think principals just like portables. I think that for whatever reason, that even when we're not at capacity, they like the portables sitting there for some reason. I don't know that. Do they?
These are the numbers that Dr. Sullivan and I have been working off of the last 3 or 4 years, just to give you an idea. And this is based on classrooms and square footage, and it has nothing to do with portables. We are looking at Laverne High School, 2134, Oakland High School, 2112, Rockville High School, 2310, Riverdale High School, 2068, Smyrna High School, 2178, Stewart's Creek High, 2288. And that's based on an average number.
Science, but Stewart's Creek is a much larger
Yes.
facility
Yes.
than, in fact, if I'm not mistaken, it's our largest.
It is, that is correct. And I think I left out Siegel High.
Siegel's
23.
their footprint has increased since the end.
It has increased with the last additions that we've done there.
They're the only one that really, we can safely say, has room.
That is correct.
Did you say Blackman? I didn't hear.
I'm sorry, I'll double check just in case I didn't. 2266.
Thank you.
And they're sitting somewhere, currently?
1988 is.
And when we did that rezoning, that was one of the things where we let the principals work on. I will say this, hindsight's 2020, but if we would have probably convinced the principal that was there that is not a good idea, it could have provided us a little more wiggle room at Rockville.
But based on the numbers that we're knocking on the door. I mean, even the ones that are there, if you look at their demographic and the classes and all the things that they do, they're right there at capacity. And everybody else is over. I mean, we've got 15 portables at Smyrna High School.
And I'll have updated numbers on Thursday. It's very fluid. Every single day right now, we're doing a staffing report. So as kids come and go, we update this every single day.
You're not going to get true numbers until the end of August, usually after Labor Day. Labor Day, we're pretty, it's smooth.
So September, we can come back in and really look at some good numbers and get a good feel for where we are.
So when will we tackle this and make our decision?
We would do this in fall. I mean, like October. I mean, we could do that in October.
I just want to give the families, and hopefully we don't do have to do this again 4 times, but I'd like to have something set so the parents know, okay, this is what it is next year and going forward. And if you buy in this neighborhood goes to this school. Because they can do that at Blackman a little bit better. They can do this at some of the other areas of town, and it's been kind of a mess.
It's been a challenge. Blackman and Riverdale have been rezoned 4 or 5 times. I mean, it's been back and forth. It's like chasing a cat's tail. You're never going to catch up with it. It's going to go in circles and circles with it. We've moved them out of, and Dr. Anthony, I think you're in your neighborhood. We've moved them out of that location to Blackman. We've moved them back to Riverdale. We've moved them back to Blackman. When that Blackman got an addition, we moved, it went back and forth. I mean, we're adding over 23 individuals a day in this county. The numbers that he put out, it wouldn't surprise me. I think 48, but it wouldn't surprise me if we hit 49,000. And some of it is some of our homeschoolers coming back. We're challenged. I mean, it just is what it is. We're challenged.
I share in Ms. Maxwell's concern, but I think we all do in the population. I mean, and one of the issues was portables, and I had an opportunity to talk to Mr. Lee today. You mentioned, and can you remind us of the numbers of how many portables we moved last year and how many are we moving this year?
As a general rule, we move somewhere between 3 and 7 portables. A big year like when we did Oakland, Middle, and Woodward, Buchanan, opened both those schools, we probably moved 8 to 10. We're moving 28.
Well, we had a rezoning.
Yes.
And we had a school, we opened a school.
Yes. And those schools had a lot of portables.
Portables, Rockville, and
You had Laverne Middle, that had a lot. You had Buchanan, you had Rockville Elementary, you had Christie Allen. They all had portables. They all had a large number.
while we're on the Laverne Middle, can you give us an update on
Yeah.
that building program?
Yes, sir. Training. I'm sorry, turned it off. We're, like everybody else, we're chasing computer chips and computer parts. Air conditioning was turned on today, which means we're now able to start the gym floor. Takes about 2 to 3 weeks. We're expecting that addition to be finished probably about the middle of September, targeting gradual move-in, complete changeover, fall break, which is very similar to what we did a couple of years ago at Oakland Middle. Not by choice, but I've fought it. Struggling getting equipment, struggling getting manpower. We've changed the floor covering color 3 times. It's LVT, similar to what you saw at Plainview, but every 2 weeks we'd find out another color was no longer available. And this stuff has been ordered, for 9 or 10 months, and it's time for it to get here, and it's not getting here. And I don't know if any of you noticed, we opened Plainview. They had large or gang restrooms, very nice. We have the community hand washing where you have 3 or 4 fountains. Well, there's only 1 at each one. The other ones hadn't come in yet, and they can't tell us when they're coming. But because we had 1, we meet the code and we could open. The ones for Laverne Middle are not here yet. Same exact faucet, same exact manufacturer, 2 different, it's the same exact contractor doing both jobs. Southern States, which is a local Murfreesboro company, got a lot of history with the school system. They had both schools. They ordered the same thing for both projects at the same time because they know we have to try and be through in August. Well, they got a third of what they ordered for Plainview, and they've got none of what they ordered for Laverne Middle, but they're telling us it's going to be here. It's been very challenging. The construction industry's not been a lot of fun, like a lot of things have not been fun, but we will be ready by fall break.
Mr. Lee, can you also give us an update then on the questions that have been posed about the, why all the portables that have been moved to Rockville High are not up and running? Because I understand we've got kids running all over each other, trying to get classes and everything. The classes are overcrowded, the halls are overcrowded.
Well, this is a similar schedule that we've used in the past. You can typically move 7 to 8 portables and get them set up and ready for school to start. The portables at Rockville are set in place. They are scheduled to be up and running in 2 to 3 weeks. We're thinking 2. Middle Tennessee Electric is supposed to set the pole for us this week. They get the pole set, we'll be good for 2 weeks. This is not atypical. It's not unusual for the years that we've moved more than 7 to have some portables that are not ready when school starts. There's the last 6 years, we bid out every year our portable relocations. We've had 1 bidder. That's it. We're reaching out to some of the local companies to see if we can get them to bid. If we had 2 bidders, I'd be back in here asking y'all to approve a higher price so that I could use a second company to maybe expedite the process. We haven't had that second company for the last 6 years. I'm going to use the term, fortunately, I guess, for me, y'all have never heard about it. We have 1 or 2 that ends up being a few weeks or 3 weeks after school starts. We've even had a couple of years where we had portables sitting that we didn't relocate, that were not going to be utilized, but then when our numbers came in, Dr. Sullivan calls me up and goes, "Hey, remember that portable you said we still had? Can you move it too?" And we move it to that school, and it may not be ready till November, Thanksgiving, or December. So it's not unusual. It's just come to your attention this time. It's not ideal for us either. We'd like to get them all up and running prior to school starting, but I don't know that there's enough trailer moving companies when you're trying to do the number we're looking at this year to accommodate us.
I do want to say thank you for the efforts that you've made out at Rockvale. I've talked to several families out there. I visited the school during Walk the Rock and spoke with Mr. Luker. They have a really positive attitude about it, and I'm super proud of our teachers and our administrators for really taking ownership and making those portables home for our students. I hear from teachers that often when they're in a portable, they're sad to leave the portable once they've been in them. So that says a lot about the attitudes of our teachers and what trickles down to our parents. But I know it's been challenging. I appreciate the sign, and I appreciate the improvements you're making. The Rockville portables are unsightly, and it's unfortunate that we have had such growth that we have to see so many portables added to a beautiful new high school. But I think that speaks to what's happening in our community. The county commission, maybe we should host them at one of our schools where we have so many portables. This would be a really great opportunity for them to see what we're dealing with as a result of the growth. It's one thing to talk about, it's a completely different story to walk those properties. So I do want to say thank you. I know your team and you are doing the best you can, and they're making the best out of it right now. So thank you.
I would like to say, just follow up on that. When we move them, they get scratched, they get dented. We're in the process. I wrote a purchase order today to paint the ones at the middle school. We're looking at painting the ones at the high school if that's what they need. I've had calls from parents going, the insulation's hanging out and the metal's flopping off. Well, those are doubles. I mean, you have to take them apart to move them.
Yeah.
And then when they get there, you put them back together and the skin goes back on. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying these are brand new portables that look like brand new portables that just rolled in. We have 113 portables. We have 35 that are over 20 years old. They are wood siding. Some of those, the wood was rotting off the side. And for the last 2 or 3 years, we've been covering them with metal, reworking the roof, getting them back to where they are, safe, air-free. You know, they're presentable, but they're 25 years old. But we do try and take care of them as best we can. When they need painting, we're painting. I had a couple of principals that said, my portables have been here for 3 or 4 years, the paint's faded. Can you come out and pressure wash them, and then let's look at them? So we go pressure wash them and clean them up, and if they don't, so we paint them. So we spend $3,000 to $4,000 to paint a portable. So we do make them look as best we can, but they're 25 years old. But I also want to make sure that if my child or my granddaughter now was in that portable, would I be okay with her there? That's the way we look at them.
I know with previous boards, we've always defied portables. We've always wanted to get rid of portables, and I think we've worked hard to try to get rid of them. But this uncontrolled growth we have, there's no way we can stay on top of it. It's like playing whack-a-mole, trying to figure out where to build the next school and get rid of portables. And the previous boards have worked hard on doing this, but until we get real aggressive, I'm going to say it's going to take probably 2 schools a year to get caught up, to get rid of portables, to get them plumb out of the picture. But I don't know that can happen. That's a huge cost to this county to build that many schools at one time. We talked to Mr. Lee about the amount of time it takes to build a school now. I think you're going to need more time. You're going to need more leeway. It's going to take more than probably 10 or 12 months to get a school built in the future. I know builders building houses, some of them are taking 6 to 8 months to get a house built now. And it's because they're waiting on doors and windows, 10, 12 weeks lead time on doors and windows. So this is a problem across this whole nation. It's not just here. But our supply chain is in a lot of trouble right now. And even in my business, I see that I can't get product. I order it. Ordered 5 skids last week. I got 1 skid. I mean, it's something that we've got to get through, and hopefully we do soon, and get back to getting things done in a timely manner. But I feel for you. I think your staff has done a great job, Plainview. How you pulled that off, I'm still amazed. I mean, great job.
Yeah, it is staff and the contractors, but I have individually talked with a number of you. We can't continue to build these schools in 10 to 12 months. We need to now be looking at, and we have to start looking at our 5-year program earlier. We need to, probably be making those decisions in December on what we want to do so that we can go to the county commission in January, February. I need to be able to put projects out on the street in March and start in April. We've been very fortunate the last few years, and it's caught us. We just can't, the supply chain can't keep up. The manpower's going to be we're hearing it with food service, but it's the same thing. In construction, it's everywhere. And then with the ESSER money that all the county school systems are getting, it's just going to exacerbate the problem because there's going to be plenty of money, but there's not enough people to do the job. And then we're going to have some job, we may have to look at prioritizing because you can't get the companies to do all the work. But you are correct. It's out of control, and the building residential market, I don't know what we do.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Young, you mentioned earlier, and I think it's probably pretty timely, about needing to revisit the whole building plan. Do we have a building plan meeting on the schedule coming up anytime in the near future? And if not, should we have?
We don't, but just like Mr. Lee just said, we need to get some planning going here by early December anyway.
I think we need to try and get some of these numbers in through September maybe, so that we do have, and it used to, and those that have been on the board a while, I call it chasing it. We used to follow it around the county. The growth would kind of move and it's not there, it's everywhere, which is going to probably make the decisions that much more difficult this year. But we probably need to wait till maybe middle of September and then start looking at it in October, November.
Mr. Young, I'm sorry. I would like to propose to start again like Mr. Spurlock had done with us doing not a town hall official with the parents, but the county commissioners going to each and every one of our schools and looking at the facilities. If we can get a date on the calendar for us to all look at those, because this past weekend and last week I was in and out of a lot of our schools, and there's a lot of things that need to be taken care of. And I don't think the county commissioners are aware of, you know, they see these new schools, but we have these schools that are 30 years old that need new flooring and they need new bathrooms. And it's just something that they drive down the street and they don't see. So I really think for us to really get a good picture of what's really going on and what we truly need, we need to tour each and every school, unless it was built in the last year.
Mr. Lee, are there any of our high schools that have property that we could add on? Because that's been what the commission has been more palatable with, adding on. And it does cut down on the number of rezoning. Mm-hmm. Do we have any? I mean, we built at Siegel.
What, I guess one of the conversations we would need to have is what would be the new core capacity that we would be looking for.
I'm going to say 2,500 for a high school.
I was hoping it wasn't going to be higher personally.
2,500, I think, for high school.
Well, with Laverne Middle being the only middle school in Laverne, and it services that entire Lake Forest neighborhood, which is one of the largest neighborhoods in the United States, I'm afraid when that annex is open, we're going to be at capacity again. And they've been at capacity for a long, long time. They've had classrooms out in the hallway, in the auditorium. So we really need to do a deep dive and see exactly what we need. Because I think the growth, I'm sorry, Mr. Spurlock, the growth on the north end with that Arbor Ridge, 2 complexes coming in, 2,600 kids. You know, if they go to Rock Springs and Stewart's Creek, and there's surely going to be some that are going to be moved across 24. We don't like to do that, but, you know, if there's capacity there, and then next year, next school year, we also have to be preparing for that open borders law that they just signed into legislation. And, you know, we need to prep our parents and saying, if you want a seat in the school, you need to sign up early so we can predict our numbers and so we can save some seats for those growth.
Doesn't that open border legislation only apply to schools with space?
Well, that's what I'm saying. We got to make sure we've got space for our own people first before we can open that up to somebody else.
Those growth pieces?
Yes. Because we could
give me a little bit of time, I can begin to look at, which is a different way of looking at it. From a safety and security standpoint, we don't need to get these annexes. We need to connect if at all possible. Mm-hmm. And getting them separated, like an Oakland Middle or something like that, needs to be the exception to the rule from a safety standpoint. So there may be some that appear they might. I'm going to need to probably get a couple of our engineers involved to look at some of this with us.
Or Dr. Sullivan, on Rock Springs Middle, is that number that you're seeing? I'm looking at 1,000.
Let me pull them up real quick. I know Rock Springs Elementary actually has quite a bit of room.
Well, yeah, they have 1,109 according to this.
Yeah, Rock Springs Middle, 992.
That's down.
Yeah, they're not growing,
Down.
and they should be, but they are not. Yep. We right now
I think
have,
this number's skewed here or something.
No, because they will grow some, but you've got part of it that goes to Stewart's Creek and part that goes to Rocky Fork as well, right there.
Yeah, I think that's where and Rocky Fork is not.
No, it's got.
So I think we can look at, that's another thing we're gonna have to do, is look at how we can, can lessen the impact on Stewart's Creek and some of them by making some moves there.
It was a good conversation, and I know it'll be coming back up, so we'll be ready to discuss that more later on. Is there any other discussion? All right, hearing none, we are adjourned.